Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Slayer Talk. My name is Mark. With me as always is my wife Carol. How you doing today, Carol?
Hey, what's up?
Not much. It's been a good week here. It is January 25th, it's 2000.
He's stuck in the
It's very hard.
1990s,
It's
Grandpa.
Very hard not to say 19. I've been saying 19 for the year my whole life. It's 2000. It's the year 2000.
That sounds so foreign and weird.
It
And
does. That's what I'm saying.
I agree.
Speaking of foreign and weird, though, this episode of A New Man, this episode of Buftifer the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
No vampires in this. But
You know, I was thinking about that, Mark. And while that is my number one complaint about this show, they've fixed it. Because there is a vampire in it. There's always a vampire in it now.
I guess that's
because
true.
Spike's hanging around.
I guess that's true. There's what's his name? James Marsters?
Yeah.
Spike.
But he hardly counts. Like, we're listening to the opening song here about I let you drain me dry, and every time I hear that I think about was there a vampire? It triggers me to think, was anyone in danger of being drained dry? No. That should happen every episode.
I feel like that should happen in my life every day. Where I should be
Whoa.
trained.
Mark. Ew.
I am sure I am not the only one in the audience that thought of that.
That is not what I meant. Dirty mind.
Anyway, what I did like about this episode is this is a Giles episode.
Yeah, finally.
We've had very little of Giles in this season.
Yeah, I like Giles. But they really do need to find a use for him.
Yeah, well, because his whole thing was he was Buffy's connection to the council or whatever.
Right.
The shadowy council. And she is withdrawn from that. And there are no consequences for that either.
Which is crazy. I feel like if this were a real thing, because like in reality, there is no Slayer. Mm-hmm. If there was a Slayer and there was a council, the council would have killed her.
I would think so, because they want a Slayer that they can work with.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird. And then there's Faith, who's in a coma, I guess. Like, that the last time...
That's so soap opera-y. Like,
I know.
They're just doing that until they want to bring her back.
I think so. Because the last time we saw her, she wasn't dead. She was incapacitated. And I thought to myself at the time, although I don't think we mentioned it, I thought to myself at the time, they're doing this for one or two reasons. One, they want to bring Elijah Dushku back. Mm-hmm. Or two, they don't want to have to deal with another Slayer. They wrote themselves into a position where there was a second Slayer, because Buffy technically died in season 1.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
And now it's like, if they kill Faith, they think to themselves, well, we got to mention that there's another Slayer out there then, because someone would take Faith's place. We wouldn't necessarily have to see her, but we'd have to know that she's there, I guess.
Right.
So I think this is their way of being like, you know what, no more Slayers. Just Buffy. She's the only one. We made a mistake. We shouldn't have done this. Although I did like the Faith episodes.
Yeah, I liked Faith a lot. I think she was a good character.
Yeah. But speaking of characters, Buffy and Riley, new Bo Riley, are about to fuck.
Yep, they are cozied up in the dark, talking about whether or not they have time.
He completely cock-blocked himself.
Why?
Because of the surprise that we find out. But he did it for noble reasons. But he totally could have gotten laid, and I don't think they've had sex yet.
What do you mean he cock-blocked himself?
Oh, wait, no, Willow came in.
Yeah, they were going to have sex. Willow came in. Willow was supposed to be at the library till midnight.
Yeah.
But then she busted in the room.
I forgot that Willow came in there.
Yeah.
And he didn't get to come in there. No.
And he didn't know about the surprise.
No, he did.
He did not, because he had his stuff. He ran in that room with a weapon. Him and Buffy both ran in the room with weapons drawn.
Oh, I didn't... I guess that's true.
He had like a crossbow or something.
I didn't even think about that, but I really thought that he knew about the surprise.
No, like Willow was like, "Oh, there's a monster or whatever," and they both of them ran in ready to kill something.
She burst in. There's a monster or whatever, guys.
I don't think he would have been laying on the bed in the dark with her with hands on pant buckles, with knowing a surprise was coming.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so they go into the library or whatever. I don't know.
It wasn't the library.
Computer room, something.
Was it?
I don't know. Some room.
Some room in the college that you're right. They should have had no access to. It's not the high school anymore, guys.
Right.
Okay.
But it turns out it's a surprise party for Buffy's 19th birthday.
Happy 19th, Buffy.
Yeah. So everyone's there. All the people we know, and then some extras. I don't know who these people are. They're just friends of Buffy's or whatever, but they saw these two brandishing weapons.
Right? Like, they don't know she's a Slayer. They don't know about the initiative. There should have been a much bigger reaction.
Yeah.
Or, they could have come up with a more normal thing to get them in the room.
Yeah, it's the whole thing's weird.
Not well thought out.
But anyway, so they're all, like, celebrating Buffy and everything, and Giles is there. And Riley, she's like, I want you to meet Riley. Riley's my new boyfriend or whatever. And he's like, oh, you have a boyfriend? And
yeah, he's realizing he's pretty out of touch. And then one of the guests comes up and, I guess it was
it's Riley, I think.
Oh,
go ahead. One of the guests comes up and says what?
Says something about how they would have invited some adult person, but then they knew they wouldn't want to hang out with kids.
Oh, I think Willow says that.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, I think Riley says that.
About the professor.
Yeah.
He's like, she wouldn't want to hang out with a bunch of kids. And it's like, well, why is Giles there?
Right to his face. And he's like, so you were the librarian. What are you doing now? And he's like, I'm kind of between jobs.
Yeah.
He's unemployed. I don't know where he gets his money from. He's unemployed. He is middle-aged. And he's hanging out with a bunch of college kids.
I was thinking about the money situation. Like, maybe the council paid him really well, so he has a good savings. But I mean, he has to. He's got a house.
If the council was paying him, he was double dipping then too, because he was getting the salary from the school.
Yeah. So he was getting two salaries. That's how he's managing this. But he will need a job eventually.
Eventually, yeah, you'd
think.
So. I wonder if he's still fucking Joyce. What happened to that woman last time?
Yeah,
she was like, "Oh, Giles, all the stuff you said about Hush or whatever, it was true. Like there's monsters and stuff." And he's like, "Yeah, let's have sex."
Yeah, he was supposed to get a girlfriend.
Yeah, didn't happen. What happened to her? She's just gone.
Bye. So sad.
Hopefully, she comes back. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, so he's pretty depressed because he realizes he has nothing going on in his life. It's just over and over slapped in the face with it.
And he goes to talk to the professor. Well, so Buffy talks to the professor. So after the party and everything, and after Giles is like, oh my God, fucking, I'm a loser or whatever, he goes home. And then Buffy talks to the professor, and she's like, she gets the real introduction. She's like, oh, you're the Slayer. We thought you were a legend. And she's like, I am a legend, mate. No, she's like... She's like, oh, I guess I should have realized that, I knew there was something special about you from class or whatever. I guess I should have realized you're the Slayer,
How would you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Although, why would you think anything's made up if you are aware of all these monsters and weird supernatural things?
No shit, right? But so they talk about how like they have technology and stuff like that, and she's like, I think we can learn from each other and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, Buffy in and of herself is a supernatural being.
And I was just thinking that, where she was like, we can learn from each other and stuff like that. I was thinking they're going to fucking try to imprison her, aren't they? So they can study her.
That would be really dumb.
I think that. Maybe that's not where it's going to go, but I feel like that's where it's going to go.
So you think they're evil? You think the initiative is actually evil?
I don't think the initiative's actually evil. But I think the initiative is willing to do evil things in the like pursuit of keeping the world quote unquote safe. I think them trying to harness Buffy's power or whatever. Maybe I can give this to Riley and everybody else, and if they were all supernatural like this, and they all had superhuman strength, and we could really fight evil. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a big threat that rises, which we get a bit of a hint of in this episode, which we'll get to. But I think there's going to be like a big threat that rises, and the professor is going to be like, Riley, capture her. We need to study her. We need to dissect her or whatever. We need to figure out what makes her special. And then we're going to use that to, because that's the only way we can defeat this monster. And like Buffy's going to have to fight them too and the monster. That's what I think is going to happen. And Riley's going to be like, oh, I can't do this. He'll have a crisis of confidence or whatever.
That's awful. That's an awful, awful storyline that you've created in your head that makes me sad.
I mean, maybe it's not going to happen, but like I could totally see the season going that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do get a whiff of something wrong with the initiative at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Because Spike mentions that they're talking about some number. Like, no, you're shaking your head at me.
No, that's not who talked about it.
Riley?
No.
Who?
Ethan, which we haven't gotten.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
So anyway, so she has this conversation, and that's basically what it is. Like, oh, we can learn so much from each other. And when she said we can learn so much from each other, that's what gave me that weird feeling of like, oh no.
Yeah, because Buffy can teach you like martial arts, maybe, but
right.
That's about it.
And well, here, so step 1: be 10 times stronger than a human being.
Right.
And then Giles has a conversation with her. And I couldn't remember if Giles figured out beforehand or afterwards, but I think it was afterwards. He starts talking to this professor, and she's like, oh, she's mentioned you a lot or whatever. And like, I thought Buffy's a very special girl and stuff. And she's super critical. She's like, oh, yeah, I think that she's been given too much free reign and she doesn't have a positive male role model.
What the fuck?
Right to his face.
What? I mean, maybe she doesn't realize how close they are.
Maybe not.
Maybe she doesn't realize that he is her father figure. Because, I mean, her father did abandon her.
Right, which makes sense.
For her to be like, oh, she needs a male role model or whatever, she might not realize that that's the role he serves.
Yeah. It's definitely the role he serves in her life and the show.
I don't think she cares, though. She does not strike me as a person who cares about hurting anyone's feelings, for sure.
No, not at all. So he, like, instantly hates her.
Yeah.
And he goes home, and it's like he's kind of, like, sad-sacking it around and everything. I don't remember exactly how this happens, but Buffy and him are talking, and she says something... Or no, Willow and Giles are talking. And Willow's like, oh, probably, Riley's people, like, were on it or whatever. And he's like, what? What are you talking about, Riley's people? And she's like, yeah, because the military guys, like, the initiative, he's part of that. He's like, what? And she's like, oh, I thought Buffy told you. Like, no one told him about this whole initiative thing. And he's like, he fucking freaked out, like, because he is completely, like, out of the loop.
Poor Giles.
So he's like sad-sacking it around his house, and he's looking through books of lore or whatever, and he's like, oh my gosh, this demon is supposed to rise tonight or whatever. And so he's like, no time to call Buffy. I can take care of this myself. He wants to be manly and take care of it himself. So he goes to the crypt, in the cemetery set that they have. And he's just waiting there, and nothing's happening. And I think Buffy shows up. Or somebody shows up.
Buffy doesn't show up.
Somebody shows up. Because he's like, what the fuck is, like, they're not rising or whatever. And maybe that's when Buffy or Willow or somebody shows up.
Okay.
And is like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm waiting. Like, they're supposed to be rising, or whatever this. And he's like, but nothing's happening. And they're like, oh, Riley probably took care of it. Because they have these instruments that monitor...
Detect rising.
Yeah, they it's good for bread too. No, it's like they detect like energy pulses or something like that. It's like, so they probably already took care of it, which no demon rises, so they probably did. And he's like, oh, well, I'll just wait just to see or whatever. And he goes and waits and sees
nothing.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. It might not be at the crypt. It might be beforehand when he says something. Because I think he says something to Willow. Yeah. And that's when Willow's like, no, he probably took care of it or whatever already.
Yeah.
So he's waiting there and everything. Nothing's happening. So he's like, who am I kidding? Nothing's going to happen. And then he walks out. And then Ethan Rayne Mr. Turn your Halloween costume into reality, Ethan Rayne, is back for a third time. And he's like, oh, Giles, I believe something will happen. I think something very bad is going to happen to you in this episode.
Is so funny.
And then, like, the door opens, and Giles is like, someone say something. And he's like, he screams. He's like, oh, I thought you were gone. It's like the thing with Spike, where Spike's like, let me tell you, Slim, I'm going to get you. And then he just gets tasered.
Grab him.
But, so instead of, like, the Giles is like, I could beat the shit out of you, and, like, you're going to make my night so much better because I'm going to beat you up. And Ethan's so afraid of him, too. It's so funny. He always calls him Ripper.
Mm-hmm. He must have been tough when he was young, at least.
I guess so. And he's like, basically, like, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he, like, touches a nerve somehow with how he's feeling out of place and everything. And so they end up going to the bar.
It's hilarious. They get drunk together.
Yeah, so they're drinking and everything, and they're talking about this stuff. And Ethan is the one that mentions this initiative thing. And he's like, oh, let me tell you, the demons, they are talking about this.
They're whispering in dark corners, especially this number, whatever.
345 or 145 or something like that. I don't remember the number.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, he's like, they're pissed off. This initiative, I'm telling you, maybe they're inadvertently causing, like, it's almost like he's saying, like, the monsters are going to unionize. And then all come together at once. Which would be an interesting way to end the season if the big, like, threat was all these different kinds of monsters. So, like, tons of different kinds of demons, vampires, werewolves, giant snakes, or whatever. They're all, like, attacking at once.
Oh, my God. That would be awful.
So, anyway. So he's like, yeah, I don't know. They're messing around and stuff. And he's like, okay. So they end up getting drunk. Go ahead.
Oh, you go.
I was just going to say this waitress comes over and Ethan's like, oh, love, I could give you a rodgering or whatever.
A rodgering?
Yeah, British slang.
Ew.
So he gives him the phone number.
And then Giles leaves to go to the bathroom or whatever and comes back. And he makes the classic mistake. You never leave your drink unattended with a psycho like
Ethan
Rayne. And Ethan's like, so I poisoned your drink and you're going to die. And Giles is like just frozen in fear, like, what? And he just starts laughing. He's like, oh, I'm just fucking with you.
Mm-hmm.
Giles should have anticipated that something bad was going to happen.
Yeah, it's Ethan Rayne.
Come on. So
he turned Xander into a military guy.
Yeah, he's a bad person. So they laugh it off, and he wakes up hungover and
you can reveal
looking like a fucking demon.
He wakes up and he's like a horned demon.
Insane. So Ethan Rayne somehow turned him into a demon because he poisoned his drink.
A demon with paralyzing mucus, as we find out later. Although it's never actually, they mentioned it a couple times that it never comes up. He never actually paralyzes anyone with mucus.
He never sneezes.
No. So he wakes up and he's like, oh, fucking Ethan. That scamp. So, go ahead.
He doesn't realize that, like, he thinks everybody can just understand him.
Well, he breaks everything in his house.
Oh, yeah.
Because he doesn't realize what kind of strength he has. So he breaks his phone. He breaks his table. He goes to open his door and it just, like, fucking shatters. And then, he goes to find Buffy because he's like, I need Buffy's help so we can fucking get Ethan and I can, like, turn this around or whatever.
I thought it was Xander that he wakes up. Was it Buffy?
Maybe it is. Oh, yeah, it is Xander. You're right. It is Xander.
It's kind of a funny scene. He gets in the bed behind Xander, and he's like, now, listen, I don't want you to be alarmed. You know, I look a little strange, but it's me. It's, like a fatherly, like, time to wake up, son, kind of thing. And Xander can't understand a word of what he's saying, and he turns around, he's just, like, screaming because there's a demon in his bed. Yeah,
we get the point of view of Xander, and it's like, it's just gibberish.
It's hilarious. And
Giles understands it right away. Because as he's like screaming in fear, he's like, oh, they can't understand me. I must be speaking demon or whatever.
Yeah. And Xander's just throwing shit at him, like, until he finally runs out of the room. But
And he feels the like demon part start to take over. Like he has got like all this rage and stuff. He sees the professor in town and he's like chases after her. And then he runs into Spike and Spike's like, "Oh, a demon. Let me tell you something, demon. You're one of those things that I can beat the shit out of, so prepare to be beaten the shit out of." And he's like, "Spike, fine, whatever." And he's like, "Oh, Giles, is that you?" He's like, "What?" He's like, "You understand me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I speak that demon language."
so they team up, and Spike's driving him around.
In his shitty car. Not Spike's car, but
Yeah.
Giles' shitty car. Because Buffy goes like Xander says to Buffy, like, "Hey, what the fuck? Something something attacked me or whatever." And they're like, "Let's go find Giles. He'll know what to do." And they go to Giles' house and it's destroyed.
So like, oh, it got Giles.
Yeah, exactly. So they think that whatever it is killed Giles. So they, they're going after it or whatever. Meanwhile, he says to Spike, "We got to find Ethan Rayne so I can get him to undo this spell."
I don't remember. Do they find Ethan?
Yeah.
Where is he?
In a hotel.
Okay.
What they do is they go to Spike goes to the restaurant where they were at. Giles stays outside because he's a demon, and he's like, "Hey, let me tell you, it was two British guys like me with a British accent." He's like, "But not as handsome as me." And she's like, "Oh, I remember that creep. He gave me his phone number or whatever." And he's like, "Okay, so did you go to see him or whatever?" She's like, I threw that phone number out. It was to that like shitty little motor court or whatever, and I don't know how she knows the number to there. But
That is a good question.
He's like, "Oh, okay," So they go to the hotel. Now, meanwhile, Buffy is looking for them, and they they figure out that Ethan's there too, and they start tracking him as well. And they also discover this kind of demon. It's only vulnerability is silver, I guess, kind of like a demon. So she gets a silver letter opener.
Kind of like you said, the demon's only vulnerability is silver, kind of like a demon.
Kind of like a werewolf.
There we go. Okay.
So they end up at the hotel. Giles and Spike are there first. They break in and they've got Ethan cornered, and Ethan's like, "Oh, you're gonna kill me," or whatever, and he's like starts attacking him and shit. And he's like, "If you kill me, I won't get the antidote. I know the way to reverse this or whatever." And so like he's gonna reverse it, but then Buffy comes in, and Ethan's like, "Hey, he killed Giles. Get this demon. He killed Giles."
Awful. Ethan's such an awful person.
So Buffy starts beating him up.
No, she barely touches him.
I mean, she kind of beats him up a little bit, though, but she gets him on the ground. She straddles him. She's got the thing ready to plunge it into his heart. And, like, Giles just looks up. He's like, "Fine, whatever." Like, he's, like, resigned to his fate. And all of a sudden, she's like, "Giles?" And she figures out it's him. And so then we cut, like, go to commercial or whatever. We come back. He's fine again. So Ethan did whatever he needed to do.
They forced Ethan to fix him off screen. You know how they do off screen shit all the time.
And then Riley's there too. Riley comes in, and they end up arresting Ethan and taking him into custody, which is another reason why I think they may do the same thing to Buffy, because this is establishing they're gonna imprison human beings too.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, they do that, and Giles is like, "Let me watch you rough him up in the car." So then, like after in the denouement, Buffy's talking to Giles in his house and everything, and she's like, "I really didn't tell you that Riley was part of it." She's like, "I meant to," and like this. So they kind of have like a little heart to heart about how he's feeling like out of place,
Yeah, it's sad, but he needs to find his own stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he's helpful, but she's growing up. She's 19, and there is no counsel, so he needs to move on.
Yeah, or they're going to kill him.
Oh, God. I hope not.
Which I fear, but because his character is becoming kind of not necessary, really.
I mean, Xander and Willow aren't necessary either, but I don't think they're going to kill them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but they like, yeah, I guess that's true, but they play a more active of a role, and they're at least she's going to school with her.
Yeah.
And Anya's in this episode a little bit, like, for, like, a little bit here and there. And,
Yeah.
And, you know, there's that whole situation, so I don't know.
I hope they'll just, find a way to use him more.
Yeah, me too. But, yeah. I thought it was a good episode, though.
I really enjoyed it. It was a fun episode. It was funny. I love when they're more like lighthearted. Sometimes they get a little too dark and gloomy.
I agree.
This was a good one.
But yeah, so that's the episode for the week. Carol, tell people where they can find their own wish demon.
You can write us at latefee1994@AOL.com. Check out our website at www.retrolatefee.com.
Yep.
And share the tapes with your friends.
I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.